Hey folks, welcome to Market Technical Analysis by InTheMoneyStocks.com, your leaders in pure technical analysis, avoiding all that Wall Street hype. Today is Tuesday, May 27th, 2008. Well, I hope everyone had a wonderful long weekend away from the markets, enjoying some rest and relaxation, and today we're going to get right back into it in this video. Now, previously on Friday, you guys know we had anticipated a bounce in the markets, and we had actually called that on the previous video, and sure enough, today we saw that bounce in the markets. Now, there were some key technical indicators, both proprietary and general technical indicators, that pointed towards this bounce, and sure enough, it came to fruition just like we anticipated. We did see a nice solid bounce across the board in the markets, and we saw the Nasdaq actually trading up 36.5 points. The Dow was up a nice 68, almost 69 points, and the S&P was up about 9.5 points, or 0.5%. So again, we saw technology being the bigger of the movers here, as it was up about 1.5%, while the Dow and the S&P were up 0.5% in total. So the bounces in the MoneyStocks.com called last Friday did come to fruition today, but the big question now remains, well, what happens tomorrow, and what happens the rest of the week, and what do we see going into the future? And that's what we're going to cover today, folks. So let's take a look at the intraday chart first off. Here's the Intraday ES chart, and this is the ES Minis, the June 8 contract for the S&P 500 futures. And really what we saw today was the light volume, which we anticipated in the markets. We also saw a positive bias off that. And I'm just going to flip quickly to the daily chart of this, because I want to just show you why we thought, one of the reasons that we were anticipating a bounce today. Alright, here's the daily chart of the ES, which is basically mirroring the S&P. And sure enough, you can see we came right down to this moving average right here. Alright, so you see we hit the 50 moving average, inducing the bounce, and this candle will be put in today. We can actually show you that on the SPY. Sure enough, here's the SPY, and you can see on Friday we came right down to that 50, and today you get a little bit of a bounce there. So really, from a base technical, if you don't even want to know anything about the nonsense of pure technicals and the more elaborate technicals, you could have just anticipated that a bounce off the 50, the first hit of the 50 here, you're going to get a bounce, which is one of our key mottos at InTheMoneyStocks.com, and sure enough, it held to a T. Now, volume was very light as mentioned, and that's always, you have the hangover effect of a long weekend, often having lighter volume. And that'll happen the day after the July 4th weekend coming up, again, when the markets will be closed on that Friday, and then you have your Saturday, Sunday, obviously as a break in the markets. That Monday will probably be light volume as well, very, very light volume. So, going back to the Intraday ES, let's take a look at that Intraday ES, and talk about the intraday moves. Now, number one, you saw the markets trading flat here. But as soon as the market started to open here, right around 9:30, you had the volume pick up and a little bit of a move up happen. And you had a strong move up, actually, but it didn't last all day. In fact, they tried to fool everyone and have a little move down in the markets, and this actually coincided with a bounce in oil. Oil started the morning around 8 a.m. here in New York, up about $1. By 9 o'clock, it was down $1. By 9:30, it was down almost $2. And then right around this 9:30 to 10 area, you started to see a little bit of bounce in oil, and it caused the markets to get a little worried. But nonetheless, after the market sold off, you see they moved right into this moving average jumble right here. You got the 20 moving average here, the 50 here, and the 200. This is where oil really started to fall apart. And oil ended down about $3.50 today, a hard sell-off. And we had actually talked about this, interestingly enough, in the chat room, how going into the long weekend, you had the market wanting to keep oil high because you have a major driving weekend in the U.S. with Memorial Day, the holiday, and everything. So it was interesting to note how we said, listen, we wouldn't be surprised if they drop oil after the Memorial Day weekend when everyone's done their driving already, and then it's kind of anticipatory that you see that fall in oil. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. So right here, you have a beautiful bottoming tail on the intraday. Sure enough, nice move to the 20 moving average, a 1-2 pullback, and then a blast off into the close, basically. We closed near the highs of the day, not at the highs, but relatively close to them on a strong bounce day in the markets. Now, that's looking at the intraday, and again, please note you had light volume in the markets, which indicates that it's you do have an up market, but it also indicates that the bounces may not hold. So we have to continue to watch this and keep very close attention. Now, where are we going tomorrow? Where are we going the rest of the days? And I'm going to flip to the SPY daily now, so we can kind of analyze the whole chart as a whole, going back a couple months and then looking at where we are and looking ahead. Now here's the basic channel. Remember, we were up all the way here, And again, this is the InTheMoneyStocks.com's call. We had the nice pullback to the 20 where we called the bounce. Then we saw a move up, which was a nice move, and even a double top little tail there. And sure enough, then we've had the hard sell-off here where we called the bounce right into the 50 moving average. Now, could this bounce continue? Yes, it could. There is a slight indication that we see continued bounces in the market here over the next couple days, but it's a very short-term bounce that we're seeing, and it doesn't necessarily mean it will continue. For instance, the bounce today was a percentage or an odds of a bounce were 75 to 80% we had calculated going into today, which is very strong odds of a bounce, no doubt about it. Now, we've already had a good portion of that bounce, so the odds for continued bounce decline now to in the range of about 50 to 55%. So only really about a 50-50 there chance that you're going to continue up, but nonetheless, we are seeing that you may continue up a little bit more. And we're not talking about a major bounce here. You're talking about maybe a move up here or possibly a move to the 20 moving average on the upside where you're going to hit major resistance, and then probably at that point you're going to see another move down. So near term, you're looking for a flat market again to a possible little move up, just slightly favoring a move up. But again, it's almost at this stage of the game, if you haven't been in it as a Friday close and capturing all this nice bounce today, you're not necessarily looking to enter at this point because it's really only a 50-50, and our policy at In The Money Stocks, especially in the chat room, I don't enter a day trade, especially unless it's a 75-80+% chance of a victory or a win. Otherwise, a 50-50 is not worth it. At that rate, you might as well go to the casino and just throw your money in there to do that. So in any case, keep a close eye over the next couple days. Should the light volume continue, you may also see a little bit of a move up, but it wouldn't surprise us just to see a slight bit of sideways trading to slightly up, or slightly odds favoring that over the next couple days. Now, should we come up in this area here, and should we break this 50 to the downside, and you can see the 50 moving average right along here, and that's where we hit, at that point, once we break that, you should see another leg down, and let's get that chart back here. We're going to start looking for new areas for that market to go to. Now, you're looking at a gap window right here. Notice the gap. You have a gap from this point to this point. That'll be some support, and should we break that window, then you're looking for a gap fill right around this area. So there's good support right in here, without a doubt. All right, and we'll have to analyze this as we go. This is more of a time correction, us factoring in a time correction on the downside rather than a price and a magnitude of the correction. So we have to kind of monitor the time. How long does it take for us to come down to this area? If it's soon, then we may go lower. If it takes a while and we bounce for a few days or a week here, then it may not be that long, big of a correction. And we're going to continue to update you guys. We will have a new turn date for the market moving up, but again, we're not going to release that until we can isolate it down to a couple days like last turn date, which was right around here. And then we can, once we get that isolated to a 2 to 3 day span, we'll start to alert you guys, and we'll even try to narrow it down further as we approach. Alright, so keep that in mind. Now let's take a look at the Nasdaq, because the Nasdaq actually had a 1.5% move up today. Just a tremendous bounce. And you can notice how the difference between the SPY and the Nasdaq relate here. Now, number one, on the SPY, you hit the 50 moving average on Friday. Well, we obviously didn't hit that on Friday with the Nasdaq. And sure enough, the bounce up is much more dramatic as it's been barely beaten down comparatively. Now, one thing I do want us to focus in on here is a possible head and shoulder pattern on the Nasdaq. Now, if we get this little bit of a bounce over the next couple days, that it may take us to this point up here, and we may start to roll over and form that head and shoulders. So we got to really monitor it, and I'll just show you all there what I'm seeing here. Now, this pattern hasn't completed yet, so we don't know if it is or not yet, but I'm just saying that there's a possibility you formed the left shoulder here, the head, and a possible little move up here in the Nasdaq would possibly form the right side of the shoulder, at which point you'd be looking for a breakdown pattern right there at the neckline. Alright, so a break there would basically yield probably the 50 moving average on the downside on the Nasdaq, but we'll continue to follow that pattern as we go forward on that, okay guys? So just keep in mind that pattern right there on the daily. That's a pretty apparent pattern. Now, let's take a look at a few of the stocks here, because Google was due for a bounce. You saw Google really roll down here hard the last couple days. Sure enough, Google getting a nice 16-point bounce. Baidu as well, B-I-D-U. Look at the fall on this thing. And you had a beautiful M pattern here. Notice the M pattern. And now we want to know, are we going to form the A? Because the A would basically take us up a little more, and then the A completion would take us probably down to this area here, if not a little lower. So we're going to continue to watch that pattern as well. And these patterns I'm pointing out, notice guys, it doesn't mean that they're going to come to fruition. It doesn't mean they're going to happen, but they're patterns that are setting up. So if you can follow them appropriately, you can be ready for the trade should it continue to form and perpetuate into that trade. So keep that in mind. Again, is that you may see a little more upside on Baidu here, just a little more with the markets if we kind of trade sideways or slightly up. Now again, we could get bad news at any point, as we do know that the larger time frame is showing us a negative signal. So on the larger time frame, looking over the next 2 weeks plus, we're seeing the market lower than this point. But in the near-term time frame, again, we're seeing a sideways to possibly a couple more days of the upside. So that's important to notice that there's 2 different time frames here, and we always look at the various time frames to get a sense of where we're going in the near term and the long term. Alright guys, I think that's enough for today. Have a wonderful day. By the way, the new webinar date is posted on the website. It's a week from this next Saturday. Please sign up. It's going to be amazing. Also join the Swing Trade Alerts, the chat room, you name it. You come to us, contact us. We'll help you the best we can. Have a wonderful day, guys. Talk to you tomorrow.